All right. Hello, everybody. So happy to be here with the whole Influx team. I am Neha Shingane. I'm Influx's learning manager, and I just want to get us started with some introductions here. So if you can just say your name, where you're calling in from, and what your role is at Influx.
Yeah, sure. Hi there. My name is Yutunde Olagbaju. I'm the creative director and producer here at Influx. I'm here on Tonga lands, also known as Los Angeles, California.
Hey y'all, I'm Megan Mahadevan. I'm the program director of Project Thunderbolts, and I am here on Creek Muskogee territory, also known as Atlanta, Georgia.
Amazing. And yeah, I'm also on Creek Muskogee territory, also in Atlanta. So So, this episode today is for our team to put our thoughts together about what we have experienced being part of the 2023 Bolt Amplify grant. And I want to take us back to the beginning when we got the grant and we started planning and mapping out what our work would be. So, Meghna, can you tell us a little bit about who we are and how this project got started?
I would love to. So, hey y'all, again, this is Meghna, and Neha, Yetunde, and I together make up Influx. We are a collective with a history of working on tech justice and tech organizing projects. And we also practice different models of shared leadership, conflict mediation, and just trying to be human while also doing work is how I like to describe it. Learning, failing, growing, changing, in flux, truly. And when we first heard the call that ISF had out, the Internet Society Foundation had out for the Amplify grant to tell the story of their Bolt grantees, we were really excited. And this project really resonated with us for a number of reasons. So Bolt is a program where groups, many of whom are in the global south, are bridging internet access to communities, typically without internet access. And our work previous to this had typically really relied and resided in this area of like organizing around tech campaigns, thinking about tech justice, what we need to do to have a just internet that we can all use and that is actually in service of the people and not in service of internet companies. And when we heard about this call out, it was really exciting because it was an opportunity for us, instead of constantly fighting against what is happening on the internet, really taking time to learn from people who are imagining and understanding what is possible with the connection of the internet. Technology is often touted as a method of innovation. However, in the global north, we have all seen how technology has disrupted democracies, broken communities, and broadened economic disparities. So we were really excited to apply and receive this grant in order to develop a program that was really elevating the work of people who are not just building connectivity to the internet, but doing so in a way which considered what their communities need and want, which really felt like a true definition of innovation.
Yeah, so that was really the foundation of kind of why we were excited about this project. And then, Yetunde, can you kind of lead us through a little bit about what was important to us as we started this project at the beginning of our process?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one of the main things we were considering is how to do this process in a way that centered the stories and lives of the folks doing the work, building the infrastructure to bring internet to these spaces. I think a lot of times when we went into this with the intention of like ensuring that this tension, this possible power dynamic between a granting body and those receiving support and funds. A lot of the times the way that the story of the work gets told is through images, is through video, and I think that a lot of the times in that there's sort of a lack of acknowledgement of the actual humanity of the people doing this work. And being involved in the sort of story. And so we were thinking about, again, how could we center the grantees in the story that we are developing? How could we help them gain access to tools in order to tell their own stories? And yeah, just really ensuring like that they had agency in this process. So initially, we proposed the storytelling project again as a way to sort of shift the dynamics that exist between story building and sharing that story, especially as it pertains to like folks who are from the quote unquote global north and global south and all of the nuances within that. So we wanted to challenge the Western gaze by encouraging the Bolt grantees to share their personal stories and experiences and their own views on innovation in their communities. I think that they are going to be the experts to really discuss what it means to be an innovator in their specific communities, and as well as being the experts on the results or the effects and residuals of that choice. So last year, Influx got together and we were like, okay, what is a way to make sure that these stories, we can't avoid the people who are a part of it, we can't sort of glaze over them, and we were thinking audio. I feel like audio really sort of forces the listener to gather nuance. And it's like you are forced, if you skip through, you can't skip through an audio piece and get the fullness of the story, right? There's always going to be places and pieces missing. But if you do sit with audio and spend time and listen to the people telling a story, you gain so much insight around why they're doing what they're doing, the points of power and tension within their story, as well as some of the beautiful things that happen as a result of what they're doing. So I think we really went into it wanting to center audio as a way to not invisibilize anyone. And yeah, some of the non-negotiables for us was like making sure that we were coming in curious, to Meghna's earlier point, of just being interested in how technology affects these communities, and also coming to understand our own relationship with internet and connection in that way. We wanted to center the grantees, and then we also wanted to challenge how we personally view innovation, and consider the possible points of disruption in the patterns of power and privileges around how we describe innovation or understand innovation in a global sense.
I think that's a really elegant articulation, Yetunde, of how, and I think you were really a leader in thinking through why we needed to choose audio and why we did soundscape. And there was this almost beautiful meta thing happening, as I'm hoping all the listeners have already heard the two different pieces, but you can hear the collaging that happened over time. And that a lot of this was actually done on the internet, not only the actual recording and the soundscapes, but also our team's coordination. And so it's kind of this like meta project of talking about the internet over the internet. And Neha really led a huge part of this project, which was, to Yetunde's point, we were really thinking about how do we bring forth the voices of the communities, of the organizations. And Neha, you actually led a huge process for training the grantees as well, in order to get to the recording so that we could center their voices.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to talk about our kind of training process and, how we got our grantees prepared to do this. So, along with this being a creative endeavor of sharing stories and storytelling and things like that, this was also a bit of a technical puzzle, because of our main challenge was that we were not able to physically go speak with the grantees, record, take our equipment with us and things like that. So we really had to come up with a system that would be easy and accessible, and then also result in high quality files. And and that was another kind of big reason why we chose audio, because audio files themselves are, fairly flexible. They're small. Usually it's not that much data. They're easy to store. They're easy to share over the internet. And also mainly, many people have a microphone available to them in the form of their smartphone. So everybody that has a smartphone has a fairly high quality, reliable, and portable microphone with them at all times. Sometimes you don't really think about it, but it's true. All smartphones have a pretty good microphone on them. So, it that idea that we could, that grantees could utilize this tool that they already had available to them and then share their audio files with us easily was another kind of big, I would say, like, big pillar in our strategy of sharing our stories in like an accessible and easy way. So much of our early interaction and engagement with the grantees was supporting them and empowering them to, not only do the creative storytelling part of it, but also the like technical sharing part of it. So in the beginning, we explored the theory of storytelling with our good friends Sayer and Babette, who really went deep into what does organizational storytelling look like? What should you focus on? What types of, what are the messages that we're sharing and what are the actions that we're trying to elicit afterwards? And as well, the second half of that training was, how do you use your phone? How do you hold it so that, how do you hold it? How far away should it be? What apps can you use? Like, what's the easiest way of picking up your phone and recording something and then sharing it with us to ensure, pretty high quality audio recordings. So yeah, that was pretty much our training process. Thank you, Meghna.
Yes, and I kind of want to invite y'all to also jump in here. Thank you, Neha, for sharing this process and approach. And I want to just underscore how important it was that we brought in so many other people into the process in order to kind of better understand some of our blind spots. It has been a journey to make sure that this process was supportive to grantees. And I think, we came in the onset knowing that we live in different places. We would be doing a lot of this process on the internet with people who live in really different time zones, also over the internet. And we had laid out this like beautiful process, this like process charts and like the project organizing and the deadlines and the timelines. And I'm like, maybe it was like month 3 when we're like, okay, scrap this. And I think there were so many things that came up in the process. One of the biggest things that we have seen in our previous work, working with organizing communities and people who are doing campaigns or like organizing movements against the consolidation of tech power, is an issue of capacity and how an organization or people just have capacity to do more work, to respond to different work, especially with technology. Things move really quickly. You need to have capacity to do that. And what we found is, even though we were given capacity to do this work, what was difficult was making sure and trying to work with the organizations to ensure they had capacity to tell their story. That is a whole different process, to ask someone to both be reflective while you're also in the midst of doing the work. Because we have to remember that during this entire time, they're also building internet connectivity, they're organizing with partners, they're finding funding, they're doing administrative things, they're managing their teams and telling the story of how they're doing it all. It's a lot of different headspaces to be in. So we had to do a lot of shifts. And huge shout outs to both Neha and Yetunde, who I would say led a lot of those shifts on our team in order to make sure that we were being supportive and trying to make it both the least work for the grantees, but also an enriching process that was insightful for them. And so I think one of the things that we were struggling with was, while because of the position we were in, we were sometimes almost misconstrued as like that quote unquote funder archetype, where there is like a power dynamic that the funder holds over grantees, where grantees feel like they have to listen to them. They must do what they say or their funding is at risk. And we wanted to truly collaborate and co-create with the grantees. And it took a lot of relationship building to get to that place. And also there were times when, to us, the solution was, oh, let's make this a collaborative process, when in actuality, we actually just needed to do some things for them, because that would just help with their capacity and allow them to make clearer decisions or be in more of a place of power, because we had done a certain amount of legwork for them. It was also, I think, like something I was kind of personally obsessed with, and I think was also very difficult for us, was being thoughtful in how what infrastructure we brought as a team to these groups. And by that, I mean, are we only using Google Drive and Gmail and Zoom and all of these things which we have in our other workspaces, seen how these like massive conglomerates are consolidating power and have already consolidated power in the United States. But there are so many other options, and particularly for lower bandwidth places, that we wanted to use different types of infrastructure like Proton Mail or Jitsi or all of these other softwares that will allow for more accessibility, instead of feeling like we were forcing people to integrate into one of these systems, which was both like, again, another thing that was like very well intentioned and also just really difficult, because there is something to a lot of these platforms where there's a lot of ease in working with them. So there was definitely a lot of balancing of ideas that we had and values that we had with actual implementation. And I would say that was kind of like a core process for us. Is we just came in with a lot of ideas and questions around the internet as a guaranteed path to innovation and success. And we know the internet facilitates connection and expands opportunities. It also, cultivates massive income inequality in hyper-capitalist environments. So we really needed to separate our own opinions and thoughts around the internet and make sure that we were uplifting what was being said, what they were saying, and kind of getting out of our own perspective and just truly, truly, truly learning and uplifting voices. I want to kind of pass it to Neha and Yatune and see if y'all have anything to add here.
Yeah, one of the things that I think I kept hearing from the grantees was also this idea of like, who are they partnering with and how are they partnering with them? I think one thing that was really cool was to hear like Canet, talk about how they recognize the fact that they had all of the power in their specific situation. They had all the resources, they could decide how to distribute everything, but they chose instead to have a very collaborative relationship with their beneficiary institutions and things like that. And I think that we also as a team went through a similar kind of process of like, okay, what are the power dynamics here? How can we make it so that we are being collaborative and things like that? And then also looking at some uncomfortable truths of like, okay, well, it might be more comfortable for us to do things in English, or it might be more comfortable for us to do things over Gmail or Google Drive or whatever. But what is a collaborative thing to do? What is the actual equitable thing to do? So I think it was really interesting. A lot of things that I have never thought of came up in this project for me personally. I don't know about you, Yatunde or Meghna, if you have anything to add on that, but I definitely started examining my work process way more. One other thing that I wanted to add to this was just that it's really weird to be like a reporter in this situation, because not only are we trying to track the progress and kind of report on the progress of this Bolt project, but it's kind of, I can understand the conflict of the grantees of like trying to truthfully report what's happening. Like, we're asking them about their challenges, about the problems that they're encountering, but we're also reporting this back to their funder, so it's kind of interesting. I can see the tension where they might not want to report everything, or like, want to portray everything as going well, because of this inherent power dynamic of we're all being funded by this funder, so we want to make everything look good. Why would we say things are going wrong when this person is giving us money? Like, and I mean, it's kind of crazy. I feel even tension saying this out loud on the podcast right now, because I'm like, okay, well, ISF is going to hear this, like, I don't know. So, but I think it's just really great to be able to say these kinds of things out loud and acknowledge the tensions and dynamics that are actually surfacing here. So, yeah.
One of the best things, Neha, thank you for bringing that up. I think that's like the best thing. And yes, Cosmo agrees. I think that's one of the best things that we did as a team, is like really welcoming resistance and tensions and not avoiding them, and not acknowledging them, both like within our own team as like many project goals and like the organization and the systems and the roles were shifting between the three of us, and also with the project with the grantees, realizing that like, yeah, to pretend that this is a linear process and to storytell as a linear process is just not representative of what was actually happening. And I think being open to the feedback, we got a lot of feedback from the grantees, which was really helpful in how to pivot. We got a lot of feedback from ISF, which was really helpful in how to pivot, and kind of naming the difficulties we were having with different parts of the process, or different, even like our own opinions, I think made it much stronger and made it much more nuanced and complex. And I think that the way that we were able to hold that shows up in the collaging. I know like the first few edits that we did, we were trying to like make everything make sense in a very linear fashion. And we slowly realized like that's actually not representative of our process at all, nor the stories that the grantees are telling.
That's what you'll hear in some of the clips. A lot of these clips are from the beginning of our process towards the end of our process. There's a really incredible interview that happened between Ona and Joan, where it's like, you know, you're only getting a snippet of this hour and a half long conversation where they really do find many points of connection between the work that they're doing in Brazil and the work that they're doing in Kenya. So it felt interesting to be able to see that progression in stitching all of these clips together. So that process of, you know, being able to see the clips from the earlier days of this project towards the later days of this project really is very non-linear, very cyclical, and it feels like we're kind of going back, the process of like sort of jumbling them all together and then like spreading them out and seeing how they align, and also between the two organizations, the points of alignment and the aha moments just feels really rewarding. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking as you were talking about our process of, you know, jumbling it all together and putting it together. One thing that I know really came up for me that I didn't realize was like this role that the editor has in all of this. I mean, we've been talking about, you know, this power dynamic of elevating grantee voices and making sure that they are the ones who are telling their stories and things like that. But another part of it that we realized, especially during this editing process, is, you know, we have all of these puzzle pieces of all of these different clips and they're all in their own voices. But in fact, you know, in Flux, we have a huge role in actually putting the puzzle together, in forming the final picture. And that responsibility, I think, really weighed heavily on us. In the end, we were like, you know, how do we know if we should include this clip or not? Well, you know, if this is how they described it, this is how they wanted it, they felt energy and passion as they were describing this thing, okay, this clip has to go in because, you know, that like it feels right. You know, even if we would maybe delete it for one reason or the other, we didn't agree with an opinion, or maybe we didn't, you know, we thought that somebody else, you know, maybe we thought that we could say it better in a narration or something like that. You know, we took those kind of ideas and we were like, no, okay, we want to elevate the grantee, their voices, how they said it and how they told their stories, and holding that responsibility of being the one who puts the final picture together. I think that was really powerful for me. Yetunde, did you want to add?
Yeah, I just also wanted to add that, you know, part of this process is doing the drafting process with the grantees, and not necessarily having them be in all of the files and sifting everything around, but really giving them drafted episodes to be able to listen to and give us feedback. We do have that as part of our flow of work, and I think that feels incredibly important, right? Because a lot of the times in these situations, people are given one choice and one way to engage with storytelling, and not really given an opportunity to give feedback around how they feel about how their story is told or shared or interpreted. And so I think to me and to us, it feels really important to have the grantees be a part of that, while also respecting the incredible amount of time and energy that they have to give to their bold projects, right? And I think that's a point of tension for me as well, is just sort of like how to balance, I think somebody mentioned it earlier, but how to balance just what we ask for from them, and how to make sure that through the process, being able to give them many opportunities to provide feedback and let us know how we're doing, how they're thinking, how they're feeling, also about what we're developing on their behalf, while also being like, you have so many things to do, you're caring for so many different people in your community. How to balance all of that.
Okay, well, so we've covered a lot so far. We've gone through power dynamics. We kind of went through our process and our thought process and things like that. I want to close this episode out with a little exercise. I want us to go around in a circle and answer the question, how has this project shifted your relationship with the internet and innovation? And I want you to kind of answer the question using the format, I used to think blank and now I think blank. And of course, because this is Influx, there really are no rules. So if you want to change around this format, then please feel free. But you can start thinking of it like that. And I can go first. So I used to think of the internet as this kind of neutral third space that I could just escape into. I could choose where I went, and it would be, I could find communities of people who thought like me. I used to think that it was this kind of anarchist, like self-evolving ecosystem. And I kind of, as I got older, I was aware a little bit of the way I was like manipulated by the people who set up the websites and the infrastructure. But I used to be a little bit more comfortable about giving up my own agency and shaping the internet and how I use the internet. But now, after this project, I have really started to think about the internet a lot more critically. And I have been able to kind of visualize the stakeholders and all of the different kind of people who are involved in putting together these infrastructures and services, and also about what their agendas might be. And I also think about the internet now as a tool that I can use to connect my communities to advance my agenda. I'm a lot more wary, a little less trusting, but also more active and intentional. So that's how I used to think about the internet, and now how I think about it now. How about you, Yetunde?
Thank you, Neha, for that question. I mean, I think that I used to think the internet sort of created this false sense of connection, right? And I think some of the grantees speak to that too. And thinking, I don't know, thinking around the internet of it being the sort of chaos agent where it just like creates further division between communities and between folks. And I don't know, I think now I'm feeling a little bit more neutral. I see it more as a tool, right? Rather than, like you said, this third space for us to like gather in. I think it can be both, but I don't know, as I hear how people are using it in Kenya and how they're using it to connect to student resources and provide hospitals with reliable connectivity. And it's like, it's really how they're speaking about it is as a tool, even with the forest defenders in Brazil. And now I'm sort of thinking about, like it could be more neutral, and also how can I reframe my experience with it as a tool towards uplifting the innovation that already exists within my community, right? Or towards like sustaining some of that innovation. I think also it leads me to think about like the idea of internet as like a space for innovation, and sometimes I get frustrated because I'm like, but what about the innovation that was already there prior to it being a part of the community? So thinking about like indigenous or rural innovation, and that's where some of the tension also comes for me. I know we already moved past this topic, but I don't know, like in our desire to get connected via the internet, or our inability to survive these days without like at least some internet connectivity, I wonder in that action of just like how it invisibilizes innovation that already happens within our communities without the internet. I don't know. That's what I think now. More neutral space.
Absolutely. Yeah. What about you, Meghna?
Okay, this is such a big question for me. I think when I was younger, I didn't understand what the internet was, right? It felt like this magical place. It felt like the websites. It felt like the platforms. It felt invisible. It felt like something I didn't know was physical. And the more I learn and the more intent I am on learning and understanding, how extremely physical this infrastructure is. And not only is it physical, but it's also increasingly privately owned. And the more I understand that, the more the internet makes sense to me, almost in the way that it's continuing to grow and change and build. And so as much as we are told that we should all be connected to the internet, that more connectivity is beneficial to all, I see in many ways how it's not a good thing. And there's this way that the internet feels like we can access more material wealth. And I have seen so much around us, I think we all have, how in these hyper-capitalist environments, it has really broken down and become divisive to one of the things that, to me, brings us our biggest wealth, which is our community and our relationships. But with that being said, the week that I learned about who our grantees were that we were going to work with was the same week that there was a murder in Atlanta by the police force of Tortuguita, who was a protester and a forest defender in Atlanta who was defending the forest from the building of this huge, going to be the largest police camp in the nation. And learning about about NUPEFI and their process of building internet infrastructure for the forest defenders, and learning that we were going to work with them, felt like this really important and amazing connection of this battle that's happening worldwide, of many of us who are defending our communities, defending our land, defending our people, and how the internet is very, very truly and very simply a tool. And that tool can be used in so many ways, depending on the values that people hold, the values that community holds. The internet is visible. It's a bunch of cables and wires and pipelines underneath the ocean, but it's really us, the people, which make up the magic that it holds. And as much as I fear a sense of loss, I also am excited about what is possible when we don't fear the internet, but we take control of the internet. We build the internet for the people, by the people. We build connectivity and platforms and infrastructures which serve our community's needs, which allow for the connection that we want, and we get to maintain the autonomy of what's happening. And that is really exciting and empowering to me. And I have seen firsthand how both the grantees, I think like NUPEFI's relationship with the Quilombolas is like so inspiring. And also just the level of like women leadership that's taking place is really inspiring. And both the grantees have really lived these experiences, which allow them to center the people. And it makes me excited for the future of the internet.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. I really want to thank both of you for these past couple of months. I feel like my own passion and interest has been really ignited, and both of you have been such a huge part of that journey. So I definitely want to take this time to thank you both. Yeah, I know. Okay, well, let me move on before I start crying. I want to thank you again. I want to thank our listeners for this. Throughout the course of this project, our question has always been, is the internet inherently a tool for innovation? And if it is not, what conditions need to be met to ensure that we're not recreating problematic dynamics? And for anyone who is doing this work in the future, we would ask, how are you making space to explore the tensions of innovation? Are you making enough time for storytelling, for reflection, and learning? So I'll leave you all with that. And we want to thank our fellow Bolt grantees. A huge shout out to Ona, to Joan, Paulo, Carlos, Achiki, Shayna, Mariana, Maiko, Paige, Upasana, and the Internet Society Foundation, our partner Media Justice, our sound engineer, Leah Ann Lafember Mitchell, our translators, Sunshine and Victoria, and our learning partners, Babette and Sayer, and most importantly, our listeners. And if you want to keep this conversation going, you can please feel free to contact us. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.